Hey everybody, I decided to make a little intro to the video you're about to watch. It was meant to be starting out just to answer the question of what key is Sweet Home Alabama really in, which seems to be a big controversial topic these days on Facebook and everything. But in the process, I ended up making a pretty decent lesson on modes. And I also not just answer the question later about what key it's in, my take on it, I also let you hear what Sweet Home Alabama would sound like in 7 different modes. So you're going to hear Sweet Home Alabama in the context of Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian. Yeah, you'll just have to check it out to understand. I've got plenty of chapters below if you want to jump around and you can try different stuff. So, howdy everybody, how are you today? So I've noticed that lately on a lot of Facebook groups I belong to, there's been a lot of chatter over what key is Sweet Home Alabama in. Some people say, oh, it's in the key of G. Some people say it's in D. Some say it's in D Mixolydian. Some say it's G Ionian. Well, I'm here today to weigh in on that topic. Boom! All right, I think most of you already know that Sweet Home Alabama is primarily 3 chords. It is a D major, it's a C major, and it's a G major. And yeah, it's 3 chords, all of them major. And I'm going to specify right now, it's D with D in the bass, known as D over D or D/D, though you will never actually see that written because it's already implied. So that means that D has, this particular D voicing has D as the lowest note in its bass. The C, same thing. It's C with C in the bass, and then it's G with G in the bass. Why am I saying that? You're about to find out. Another thing that is true is that the chords D, C, and G only mathematically fall into one major key signature. I bet most of you already know what that key is, but I'm going to wait a couple seconds and see if you know the answer. I will wait right now. All right, time is up. If you need more time, pause it. But I think most of you already realize that it is in the key of G major as far as major key signatures go. So that is the key of 1 sharp. The notes in the key of G are G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and back to G. That of course follows the whole half formula. What that means is you start on a G, you don't say an interval yet because you haven't done one. So you start on the G, then whole step to A. So that's basically 2-fret jump is what that means. Another whole step to B, and then a half step up to C, which means a 1-fret jump. Now instead of going from B to C here, we're going to obviously do it here. Makes more sense practically. You're on C, so hold a D, hold a E, hold a F sharp, and then you go back up to G, and you realize you've just gone around the world, and that the world is round. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, so we've established that there's 3 chords in Sweet Home Alabama. They are D, C, and G. We've also established that these are 3 chords found in the key of G major. They are the 5 chord, which is D, the 4 chord, which is C, and the 1 chord, which is G. All this comes from the key of G major, also known as the key of 1 sharp. Okay, why the confusion? Why the controversy? Why are people talking about what key it's in? Well, the answer is to do with modes generally. That seems to be what these discussions are. Now, the thing about modes, a lot of people kind of get confused about certain things and they think that they have an idea what they mean, or they might only half understand what it means. So, as someone who actually considers himself understanding what they mean, that's why I'm here talking to you about it. I'm pretty sure I have a good handle on what this actually means. So let's continue. Okay, in any major key signature, and when I say major, what I really mean is just the primary key signatures. In this case, we'll call it G major. Something I prefer to do, and I might be the only person that does this, but I'd like to encourage others to do it as well. Instead of calling it the key of G major, try calling it the key of 1 sharp. The reason is Hey, how are you doing? I decided to jump into this video after I'd already filmed the rest of it, and I realized I didn't really like how I answered this little moment of the question very well. So I'm interjecting myself magically into the video. So as I had just said, the reason I don't like to refer to the key of G as the key of G, and I prefer to call it the key of 1 sharp. The reason for that is, let's say you had a chord progression and it was just E minor, C, and D. Well, there's not even a G major chord anywhere to be found in there. And we're also going to assume for this little bit of hypothetical here that each chord is just on its respective root. So E minor has E in the bass, C has C in the bass, and D has D in the bass. These are 3 different modes. We're going from E Aeolian to C Lydian to D Mixolydian. Nowhere in there is there a G major chord. Now, when we say key of 1 sharp, that tells you right away that you need to treat each chord appropriately as if it's coming from the notes G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. When we say key of G, a lot of people, the first thing they do is they just go and play a G major scale. And I mean, that has its place, I suppose. But what you really need to be doing is thinking, okay, on that E minor chord, my primary target notes are clearly E, G, and B. Those are the safe notes. The other notes around it are painted in to add the flavor of what makes it Aeolian. And same thing with C. Your target notes are C, E, and G. And when you get to the D, your target notes are D, F sharp, and A. So by saying this, key of 1 sharp, of course it's coming from what is commonly referred to as the key of G. But we're looking at it a little bit deeper and a little more analytically. And essentially, you're going to have a better choice of notes. So start trying to memorize that. Instead of calling something key of A flat, think of it as the key of 4 flats. Instead of the key of F sharp, call it the key of 6 sharps. I'd be very curious to see what your thoughts are in the comments below. I feel this is also a reason why we're even having this discussion in the first place about Sweetwood, Alabama and what key it's in. If we would just say key of 1 sharp, and then the chords are D, C, and G, the controversy would kind of be halted, really, wouldn't it? That's how I look at it. I'd be very curious to hear what other people have to say. So thank you, and back to the video. Okay, in a normal major key, like in this case G major, as I prefer the key of 1 sharp, you have 7 modes built within. Okay, when you're basing stuff off the 1 chord, the G chord, that is called Ionian. If you have a G chord playing and you play the scale, those notes collectively together give it an Ionian flavor. Now, don't ever think for a second that because you're playing this pattern, this 3-note per string pattern, don't think that just because you're playing that pattern, it automatically means you're playing Ionian. It would be Ionian if you're playing that over a G major chord. Then you got something. There's this idea out there that if you learn these 7 3-note per string patterns, so here's the next one. Okay, that was still the key of 1 sharp. I happened to start on an A. Now, just because I'm playing this pattern does not make it A Dorian at all. The first thing is, there should be an A minor chord going on. Okay. If you have an A minor chord going on and you play the same sequence of notes, does not matter the order. If you play the notes G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G over an A minor chord, you're going to have a Dorian sound. That is how it works. It does not matter what your first note is. It does not matter that you played that particular pattern here. I could play the exact same pattern. I mean, look at this. Here's an A note. Look. It was just, an octave apart, but look, I just played it right out of the first pattern we did. So never call this just, in this case, never just call this Ionian. It is if you're playing over the 1 chord, in this case a G major chord. Yes, you are hitting the Ionian formula. But don't think that because you're playing that pattern on its own that is collectively going to make something Ionian. Okay, so we talked about Dorian. course, remember, this is the idea, is that you're playing it over an A minor chord. There's no reason why I can't just play this one, and it's still Dorian, as long as there is an A minor chord going on. Okay, let's move on to the next mode, the B minor. Okay, somebody's playing a B minor chord, and you play the notes G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. If you play those notes, you are playing Phrygian. You don't have to play this pattern for it to be Phrygian. Okay? This pattern is now Phrygian if you are playing it over a B minor chord. So is this. This one is now Phrygian if there's a B minor chord. And I would hope, by the way, that when you're playing, you wouldn't just play a scale like I did there. That would not be a good idea. You want to find the chord tones within, like if you're playing a B minor, you want to sound Phrygian. Look, I'm going to do it down here. Here's a chord tone. Here's a chord tone. Here's a chord tone. B minor triad. Okay, so that's 3 of the modes right there. That is Ionian, when you play those notes over a G major chord. Play those notes over an A minor chord, you've got Dorian. Play those notes over a B minor, you've got Phrygian. The next one is Lydian. Okay, play these notes over a C major chord, you've got a Lydian flair all of a sudden. Sounds dreamy. So we're going to kind of move a little quicker here now. Okay, so D major, play a D major chord, play these notes, and you have Mixolydian. I can already hear the happy blues sound just because I've done this quite a bit and I already know what these modes sound like. So, again, don't think that because you play this pattern that makes it instantly Mixolydian. It depends what chord you're playing on. And as we'll see shortly here, the bass note has everything to do with it as well. Okay, that was Mixolydian, the 5 chord. 6 chord is Aeolian. If I play an E minor chord and I play these notes, same old notes. Play that, you've got Aeolian. Again, you want to make sure you're targeting the right notes, but yeah, that is how it works. And then the last one is Locrian. So here's an F sharp diminished chord. So if you play those same notes over an F sharp diminished chord, you are playing Locrian. There's a lot of people out there, and I just saw this in a post yesterday on one of the guitar player Facebooks. The guy said, I love Locrian. A lot of people don't. I love playing it. I asked him, I said, when you say Locrian, are you talking about playing it over a diminished chord? And he said, oh, I like playing it over all the chords. I said, no, okay, it's cool, dude, but that is not Locrian. In the key of 1 sharp, there is only one Locrian chord, and that is F sharp diminished. F sharp, A, and C. Okay, now, a lot of people, I know what the guy means. Okay, this is a very convenient 3-note per string pattern on guitar. Is this. In the key of 1 sharp, you would go 2, 3, 5, 2, 3, 5, then 2, 4, 5 twice, then 3, 5, 7 twice. Sure, it's nice because you get to play the same pattern every 2 strings. So some people say, oh, I'm going to play Locrian, and then they play that pattern, totally not even paying attention to what chord is being played. You are not playing Locrian if you play this pattern, unless the note is F sharp in the bass, and call it the home bass is an F sharp diminished chord. Okay, so that covers the 7 modes. Now let's move on to Sweet Home Alabama. Okay, the answer to the question, what mode is it in, or what key? Okay, here's my quick answer. Sweet Home Alabama is in the key of 1 sharp. I do not like to call it the key of G major, but you do need to understand when people say that, that is what they mean. So, it's in the key of 1 sharp. What mode is it in? It's in 3 modes. While it's on the D major chord, it is in D Mixolydian, the 5th mode of G major. or as I prefer again, the fifth mode of the key of 1 sharp. Mixolydian, D. Okay, the C chord, when it gets to that, you are playing C Lydian. When you get to the G chord, you are playing G Ionian. Without even playing anything over it, just playing those chords. The modes are already implied. Now, if we had a vamp on just one chord, that is another great way to learn about modes, and I'm not going to get into that too much here. I am going to have a book course kind of thing coming out that will be very affordable, explaining these concepts even further detail. I have a book I just put out very recently, which is an absolute prerequisite to understanding the modes. While I don't mention a single mode in it, I think I might mention that I don't talk about modes in the book. Everything in there is crucial. If you want a quick analogy, imagine you picked up a book on long division and maybe multiplication. The idea is that you've already done a book on addition and subtraction. I feel that those need to come first. So if I said, here's my book on addition and subtraction, we don't get into long division or multiplication. In a sense, we kind of have, because these are the crucial building blocks. So that is where my music theory book comes in. It will help, it's kind of a must know. You might already know everything in it, but if you want to understand modes, you have to understand everything in book 1. So I've got a link right there, as you can see. Okay, back to this. We've got a D major chord, we've got a C major chord, and we've got a G major chord. That is 3 different modes, and that is because the bass note on each one corresponds to the chord. In D, no surprise, we're keeping D in the bass. On C, we're keeping C in the bass, and on the G major chord, keeping G in the bass. All right, now we're going to do something very interesting. I want to let you know what each mode would sound like. We're going to take those 3 chords of Sweet Home Alabama, and we're going to add a different flavor to all 7. So we are going to see what would Sweet Home Alabama sound like if it were truly Ionian, if it were truly Aeolian, and so on. Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, and so on. Okay, what that means when I say truly, what I'm doing is I'm going to change the triad, which is still a chord. A triad is a chord. Okay, so look at this. The chords are D, C, and G, right? Here's a D triad. Here's a C triad. Here's a G triad. Okay, that's the chords to Sweet Home Alabama. I'm going to change the bass note now so that they all share the same bass note. And you can see what it means to truly be Ionian. Okay, let's take that D chord, and we're going to throw this G here in the bass. So check this out. That is called D over G, or D/G. That is a D major chord, and we stuck G in the bass. Clearly, G is not a member of the D major chord, because the notes of a D major chord are D, F sharp, and A. But we're going modal on it now, and we're changing the bass note to reflect this first degree of the key of G, which is G. So we have a D chord with G in the bass. Okay, the next chord is C, of course, right? Okay, we're going to still keep that G in the bass. How do we do it? We do it right here. So here's D over G, here's C over G, and then, very easy, G over G. Okay, you don't really have to call it G over G or G/G. But the reason I'm saying that here is to point out that we've got to keep G in the bass when we do it here to keep it truly Ionian. So let's hear that a bit. Okay, that is the sound of Sweet Home Alabama in a pure Ionian mode. Okay, let's move on. All right, that was Ionian. It is time for Dorian. Okay, same 3 triads, though we're going to play them down here a bit lower to make it a little easier on guitar. Okay, we've got D, C, G, don't we? Look at this. D, very nice, C, and G. Okay, now our job, instead of just playing instead of playing just those three triads, we need to find an A note to stick in the bass. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking, oh, wow, I could just do it on the fifth string. And you're absolutely right, you can. Here it is. I would encourage you to try using the sixth string fifth fret, though. How do I put it? It kind of comes together better hearing the chord when you don't have an open string on this kind of thing. Plus, you're also able to move this around. Then you're not bound to, if you wanted to do this in a different key, you can just shift what we're about to do here around very easily. So this is actually not hard. Look at this. You got your triad here. We're going to just stick A on the sixth string. That fifth string will be muted. Okay, so that is D over A, or D slash A. Next, we've got this guy, the C triad, and we're going to throw A in the bass. Same A. This is also known as A minor 7, isn't it? So we've got two chords so far, D over A and C over A. Okay, now our job is to take this G triad and throw A in the bass. So, you get the idea. That is Sweet Home Alabama in a Dorian context. All right, let's move on. All right, now we're up to the metal version of it. I guess you could call it the more threatening one. Okay, there's several ways. On all these, there's several ways you could do it. I'm just going to go ahead and do it down here. Okay, so we need Phrygian is the third mode of a major scale. So what this means is we're going to still just same thing. We're going to throw B in the bass. And we're going to take the three triads, D, C, and G. Check us out. Here's a D triad. F sharp, A, D, right? And there's your F. I'm sorry. There's your D triad. Here's your E triad. It's actually the same thing you just did, except we're going left and using that open string. So, D major, C major, and then we're going to do G. You could do it right here, open, but we're going to do it here because it sounds cool. All right, so first chord is this. Then we got this, and then we got this guy. Okay, so let's look at it slower. The first chord is D over B. Now that's also known as a B minor 7 chord. I'm sure most of you already know this. If not, good time to learn it. Okay, so we got that. Now to do the next chord, it's actually a lot like an A minor chord, but you just move these two fingers, not your index. You move your middle and ring up a string towards the ceiling. So instead of this, you just go here. And not going to be a pretty chord, I'll tell you that. Well, it is kind of beautiful in its own way, isn't it? It's dark sounding, and that's the whole point of Phrygian. So look at this. We've got D over B, C over B, and then we've got G over B. I'll be nice, and I'll give you that super easy G over B. You just do this. Fifth string, second fret, and then the 4, 3, and 2 are open. So check this out. Here's your D over B, C over B, and G over B. Let's kind of hear it. Oh, sorry, last one. Yeah, I kind of metalized that, didn't I? It sounds more like a, I don't know, some kind of heavy ghost song or something. So that's the point. Phrygian sounds dark and threatening. You're not going to hear Phrygian sounding all like sunshine and rainbows. It's not. That is not its job. That is Ionian. And also kind of the other two major modes. Ionian and Mixolydian and Lydian. So that is Phrygian version of Sweet Home Alabama. So check it out. All right, let's move on. All right, it's time for a lot of people's favorite one, and I get it. It's pretty awesome, and it sounds like Satriani. Lydian time. So let's do it. Okay, let's use this triad again right here. It works out pretty well. That is your D triad. F sharp, A, and D. F sharp, A, D. Okay, then we're going to do this guy for the C now. That's easy. And then G right here. Okay, so we need to stick C in the bass on all three, and we have pure Lydian. All right, it's going to sound dreamy. I hear the dreaminess right off the bat on the first chord. The reason why, and I'll get all into this in other videos in my book coming out, but is because the first two notes I'm going to play are this. That is dream. That is a tritone. That already sounds like a Satch tune. Listen to this. Okay, so back to Sweet Home Alabama. Sweet Home Alabama. How about that? All right, so here's D with C in the bass. So just follow along, and you've got the tab right there in front of you. So that is D over C. Then it's time for good old C over C. Can't get much easier than that. You already know that. So, and now just throw G with C in the bass. So it's a lot like what you did up here on the Ionian, except here. So let's put it all together. And by the way, that first chord I did there, the D over C, that is also by definition, that is a D7 chord. Because I've got C in the bass. To be even more specific, it is called D in third inversion. That means you've got the seventh in the bass, the seventh being C note. Okay, that gives you your Lydian flair. It is time to move on to Mixolydian. Okay, this one's actually pretty easy, I think, to play here on guitar, so that's always good. Okay, we're on the D Mixolydian, not the D Nickelodeon. Let's do this here. The triads we're going to use are right here. There's D, there's C, and there's G. Easy, right? Okay, so all we got to do is throw this D note right here, 5th string, 5th fret, on the base of each one. So, here you go. There's D, D over D, but again, that's unnecessary, but the reason I'm really hitting that hard today is very important that you throw that in. Because I see people out there, and and it's fine, I suppose, but I see a lot of people when they play, like people kind of maybe first learning, for some reason when they play a C chord, they love to do this voicing. So they're actually throwing an extra G in the bottom. See, to me that just sounds instantly Mixolydian. Maybe that's what they're going for. But I would not really just call that a C chord. I would call that C over G or C in second inversion. Anyway, back to Mixolydian. So we've got these three: D, C, and G. All right, throw this in the bass. You got your D over D. Piece of cake on the next one. One finger is all you need. It's a C with D in the bass. I love that sound. Okay, then all you got to do is grab that G triad and throw D in the bass with your ring. All right, let's hear it. Okay, that is Sweet Home Alabama with a pure Mixolydian, D Mixolydian thing going on. Time to move on to the next one. All right, we are now up to Aeolian, often referred to as natural minor. So that means that we are going to play the same triads, but we're going to throw E, the 6th, in the bass. So here's an E. All right, let's do it. Here is D triad, same one we just did earlier, right? Here's a C triad, easy enough. And then we're going to throw in this guy as our G. Okay, easy. So, first one is D over E. Okay, then we just go on to here, and we've got C over E. And And then we just make an E minor 7 chord. And that actually means an E minor 7 chord in this particular voicing is literally G over E. See this? Look, we've got G, D. I'm sorry, yeah, G, D. I can't talk. B, D, G. And we're just throwing an E in the bass. So here's Sweet Home Alabama with an Aeolian flair. That is sorry, I can't talk, I swear. That is E Aeolian. So that is Sweet Home Alabama with an Aeolian flair. Pure Aeolian. All right, let's move on. All right, we are now up to the last of the 7 modes, the Locrian one, which is not going to sound pleasant, not something you really want to sit on long, unless you're trying to sound purposely dissonant. All right. So here's the 3 triads we're going to use. Here's your D, here's your C, here's your G. So, actually, same ones we just did on the E minor, isn't it? Except we're changing the bass. Instead of E, it's F sharp now. Okay, so first chord is D over F sharp. Also known as D in first inversion. First inversion implies that the third is your lowest note in the chord. In this case, a D major chord is made up of D, F sharp, and A. So we've got F sharp as our lowest. So here we go. Doesn't sound too ugly yet. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and a little bit of a stretch here. You're going to grab C down here. I just find this easy to do just visually, I suppose. So C over F sharp. Pretty, huh? Okay, now we need G. There it is. We're going to grab that guy. So, altogether, you might want to make it, when you do the first chord here, use your pinky on the F sharp note. Makes it easier. And then, of course, here you want to switch back to ring finger. So that is the Locrian version of Sweet Home Alabama. Not very pleasant sounding. So let's kind of sum this up here. What happened is, Sweet Home Alabama, it is in 3 different modes. Each chord you're on is a different mode. So when you're on that D chord, you were on Mixolydian. I played a D6 there. I'm sorry about that. I could really hear that D note. All right. When you are on the D chord, you are in D Mixolydian. When you're on the C chord, you are on C Lydian. When you're on that G chord, you are on G Ionian. Okay, the reason why is we are changing bass notes on each chord. All the harmony is still the same. We're still got 3 triads. And remember, triads are chords. So you've got D, C, and G. We are just learning today now, for some of you, that if you change the bass note, and they all have the same bass note, it is purely in that mode. All right, so you've got, that was a bit longer of a lesson than I intended to do today. But you've now got Sweet Home Alabama in 7 different modes.